Next up, we have a session on offline distribution. I'm sure, like a lot of us who are focusing right now heavily on online, how we all have like queries on, still how relevant it is, how relevant the offline distributions are. So today we have Manu Chandra from Sauce VC and Mustafa from Ivy Foods and Amin Sharma from Kapiya Ayurveda, who've nailed the offline distribution. So I'll not take a lot of time, and I'll let the panel to take over. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Nanda. I hope I'm audible to
Yes.
everyone, and welcome everyone. It's always a pleasure, to talk about offline distribution in a summit about online brands. I think at some level we all feel that offline is now an orphan child, especially with what we've been seeing post-COVID. For digital brands, it's really been a party, and I run a small venture capital fund which invests at a very early stage in consumer brands, and we've invested in 7, and I think all 7 of them are digital first, with the ambition to eventually go offline as well. Uh, One of my earliest experiences in investing was in an offline brand, or an offline first brand, if I may say so. It's a brand which manufactures Greek yogurts called Epigamia. So we learned a lot, and since then I've always believed that in India, uh, true defensible scale still sits offline. Um, and post COVID, with the digital party, if October and November are a sign of things to come, with increasing CPCs, diminishing ROSs, and an increasingly cluttered space, right? Especially in certain categories, there is no other option but for brands at a certain point of time in their life cycle to start considering an omni-channel play, right? I'm very happy to have 2 founders here today, uh, both of whom have a very strong foundation in offline channels. And I'd like to start first with Mustafa. Of course, we all know ID Fresh. I personally am a big fan, Mustafa, of your batters and your filter coffee. Um, but little is known about the complexity of the business you run. I understand you're present in 47 cities in the country. There are 700 vans doing daily deliveries across the country of a product which has a shelf life of 3 days. I mean, that to me sounds like an extremely complex business, and for me, it's mind-boggling, and I'd love, and I'm sure our viewers would love to understand, how do you address the challenges, and how have you managed to scale such a complex backend?
Thanks, Manu. In the name of God, peace be unto you. Thank you again for this wonderful opportunity. ID is not a battery company now. I would say ID is more of probably one of the best distribution company in the world in the fresh food segment, because we deal with highly perishable fresh food. On average, if you look at a traditional FMCG product, it takes around 3 weeks for the product to reach the stores, X factory. It has to go through the multiple touch points for the product to reach the store. But then we were dealing with a highly perishable fresh product. Products shelf life ranging from 3 to 7 days, and we all know running a business is tough. Running a food business is a very difficult job, but then running a fresh food business is the most difficult job in the world. That can happen only when you have direct distribution system and powered by technology. Technology plays an extremely important role in our case. Every store, is covered on daily basis, and stocks replenished. So if you look at from a ROI perspective, you would think that your sales and distribution cost is higher, but that's my marketing cost, right? So it all depends on how you budget it, because what I experienced is, today, by the way, we touch 30,000 outlets every single day with our highly
Wow.
fresh food. That is done with the help of a technology. We'll come back on that point. But then supply creates demand. When your product is available on your neighborhood stores, the right placement in the right store creates demand. So instead of investing money in generating demand by spending heavy money on marketing, we did spend money in setting up our own distribution system. And I would say today that's my best asset. I would say, I can actually ride on anything. I can actually bring any products aligned with this concept into this platform and take it to the next level. Just to give you, I know since you mentioned epigamia, right? Just to give you one very, very important point, right? We just started, cup curd, the set dehi, just 1 month ago.
Yeah.
Right? First month, we had a sale of 50 lakhs. Month one, we had a 50 lakhs per month sale. That could have never happened if you don't have a direct distribution system. Whatever online investment that you make wouldn't have given you that kind of a revenue. So
Right.
the strength for us today is, I think we have my moat itself, if you look at from that perspective, and our biggest USP is our direct distribution and offline distribution being covered on a daily basis. Every store is being replenished every day with every product, and then unsold products are routed through a B2B channel, and that's how we control the wastage.
Interesting.
So it's a very, very tough business to handle, but then it's worth.
No, it is indeed a very tough business, and even my experience, from what I saw at Epigamia as well. Of course, they don't live with 3-day shelf life; they've got 3-week shelf life, so that makes it simpler. But they also have to service their stores every 3 days in temperature-controlled vehicles. And while they started their journey with third parties, like the likes of Snowman, etc., they very soon realize, as you have, that you need to build it yourself. And in that, there is obviously an element of time and an element of capital which is required to build that kind of a business. But like you said, once you have that supply chain in place and once you have your presence on those shelves in retail stores, that is your moat. It is not so easy to get displaced from those shelves once you've got the presence and you've got the business flowing and retailers are seeing that kind of repeat demand, etc., going in for the product. Then you're a very well established and sustained business. Even today, for a new entrant to come in, and I've seen many new entrants even in your category, Mustafa, but I would imagine it would be an extremely uphill task for someone to try and replicate all the investment that you've done in the technology and the back end, and then also to win sort of shelf space in consumers' fridges and in retailers as well, right? So I think it's really interesting. I want to move over to Amev here. Amev comes from a very traditional business background with his family, the Baidyanaths. They've been market leaders in the Ayurved space, and he started Kapiva, which is into modern Ayurved nutrition solutions. And interestingly, while Amev is largely selling online today, he tells me that their intention was always to build an omni-channel presence right from day one. And a lot of the capital that they've actually utilized has gone into building that capability, even though it's not showing the necessary scale today. I'd like Amev to talk a bit more about how he's thought through the phasing of these channel decisions as they scale Kapiva.
Sure. So Manu, as a brand, if you look at the products that Kapiva has, right, we have anywhere from about 3 months to a year a shelf life, right? Very online friendly products. We are slightly premium, so most of our customers actually sit online. So on day one, a lot of people kind of turned around and said, "Why are you even looking at offline?" Right? I think that was the big question. That why do you want to even consider that as an option?
And a lot of those people equals venture capitalists. I'm pretty sure.
I'm not getting into that. But a lot of people actually, our first investor, Fireside, was one of the few people who actually said, "No, I think you guys should look at offline." Right? They were pretty bullish on it. But a lot of the other people we spoke to were very, not. They're like, "Why even bother?" Right? one thing which I realized at that time, Manu, and something we still believe very strongly. If you become a digital first brand, right, to eventually go into offline, I think is an impossible task, right?
Yes.
So the DNA of the company gets built in a certain way, right? Your product strategy, your pricing strategy, the way you think about product development, the way you think about like almost every decision in the business, right, gets built out in a very different way. So suddenly, 4 years later, to wake up and say, okay, now I've exhausted online, I'm going to now go offline. I've actually never seen that work in a scalable way, right? And that was something we were very aware of from day one. And when we looked at the market, the ambition wasn't to create a 200 crore brand. The ambition was to create a 500 crore brand, 800 crore brand, right? That was the ambition on day one. What
Yeah.
we realized very strongly is that if you want to get that kind of reach and you want to create that size of a brand, you need to have an offline presence and you need to start investing in it today, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was the basic thought process behind, going offline and looking at the market. Again, a lot of people will look at, so today as a company, I would say offline is 25% of our revenue and 75% of our burn has come from setting up the offline business, right? So a lot of people can still point to us and say, that was it a good decision? My inequitable answer is hell yes, right? Because,
Yeah.
you know, first of all, there's one point of view is that, of course, there's a very strong moat in offline, right?
Yes.
But, beyond that, I also feel that a consumer is not an online consumer. A consumer is an omni-channel consumer, right? And the sort of our consumers who buy online, the second they realize it's available in their store next door, they switch, right? And one they switch to offline, and once they switch to offline, they are sticky. The stickiness of a consumer offline, you can like it's incomparable with offline versus online, right? So I think that the investment is going to pay dividends over a longer period of time, and to be a larger business, I think you cannot avoid offline. And of course, that point regarding the moat, like they're going to be now in the next 10 years, I think 5,000 new online companies, right? The barriers to entry
Yeah.
is nothing, right? So the offline really gives you a differentiation, which a lot of the newer companies will struggle to get and to build.
Very interesting. Could you tell us? I mean, I think for young brands like you, which also have a digital channel to explore,
Yeah,
a luxury which someone like Mustafa didn't have when he started off,
yeah,
right? There is the added advantage that the online channel can provide the early impetus to the brand, right,
mhm,
in a very capital efficient manner.
yeah,
And offline as a channel is something which cannot be built in one day. It's
yeah,
something which grows, very organically.
yeah,
Repeats from retailers come very slowly. You meet 10 good distributors, five of them turn out to be crooks, and you have to let go of them and get better ones who will pay you on time, right? So at some level, having this luxury, having an online channel sort of going from day one and growing rather fast, gives you the cash flows necessary to also,
absolutely.
support your offline. Is that been has that been your experience as well?
Absolutely. Our online channel became profitable very, very quickly, and, we cannot, we use that to fund a lot of offline growth. But you'll be surprised to know today, the highest EBITDA percentage contributor of the business is offline. So our offline is EBITDA positive, and it's more EBITDA positive than a marketplace business, right? So it's actually, there is a lot of upfront investment, right? But it's repeatable business, it's reliable business, it's profitable business. Once you have a healthy offline structure set up, where your distributors are at scale, your sales staff is at scale, the kind of profitability you'll get on that, right? And you can reinvest. I think online you will never get there. Online, you start off at a certain percentage and you stay at that percentage, right? With
Yeah,
offline, as you scale, your profitability scales up significantly, right? And
absolutely.
that is something people actually don't realize, which is the long-term profitability benefit. So you pay for it today, but you get those dividends in a large way in the long run. So initially, absolutely, the online business funded the offline business. Today, the offline business is funding the online business, right? So we are investing that money into D2C.
Yeah, I think a lot of us don't realize that, while it's a great starting block, digital has its limitations in that the very manner in which it democratizes distribution for us, it democratizes it for everyone else. So the entry barriers to the digital channel are very low, and the ability to sustain growth is determined and requires a lot of capital as you scale, right? And the operating leverage that you're talking about in offline is humongous, and it's largely profitable, right? So I have a sense of the number of stores. You're probably active in 3,000-4,000 stores, you said, right? And the universe for you, for a product like you at your price point, would probably be 80 to 90,000 such stores, right? If not more.
I would say about 20 to 25 is what we're looking at
Yes.
in the next sort of 3 to 4 years. The data that, so we've, again, Mustafa talked about data. I think technology and data are very, very key, right? So we call them events, right? Offline. Every offline event is captured in our software somewhere, right? Be it, a sales call, productive, what SKUs have been sold, what type of stores, any new store entry, any tertiary and secondary sale every time you go to the store. So, the productivity of a display offline, every single offline event is captured in our software and measured, right? And when we look at the sort of longer term data of where our customers are present and where sales are present, we found for a slightly premium product, 20,000 or so stores covers almost 50-60% of the market, right? That's the data we looked
Yeah.
at. And we've looked at multiple data sets to kind of look at this. So, if you get those stores right and you choose those stores correctly and you put the right products in the right stores through the right distributors, I think 20,000 stores, according to me, can actually give you access to 60% of the world, right? And then it's a
Yeah.
diminishing return point, right? So that's the way we're thinking about it. Is that we want to get to 20,000 in the next 4 years, 5 years. That's
That's and that's pretty phenomenal because even from a scale standpoint, that's like a 7-8x jump in just distribution expansion. And obviously, I'm sure you have a product strategy as well, to expand your product portfolio over a period of time.
absolutely.
And all of that sort of multiplies once you have that channel set, because there is no more incremental investment per se that you need to do except in working capital, right? Because your feet on street, your distributor network is already well established. Just like a massive pipe sitting there which is giving you feedback and data. You have to study it, analyze it, and continue to optimize that, right?
No, absolutely. Hit the nail on the head. I think the most interesting part has been that, so we are currently in about 17, 18 cities, right? And, I think we're planning to go to a maximum of about 25, 26, right? We had really felt that going to these smaller towns would be very difficult. Would we be able to create a beat? People who don't know, beat is like basically 30 stores that can be serviced in a day, somewhat adjacent to each other, right? So a salesman can actually be utilized properly. So will we be able to create a beat? But we were surprised that even in smaller towns, people are looking for better products. There are, great sort of stores that are catering to differentiated kind of products as well. So it was actually the first year was a lot of trouble setting up. But once we got going, once we got the system right, expanding was actually relatively easier than we thought.
Nice. I just wanted to delve a bit deeper into your category per se. It's
So,
modern Ayurved products are not a classic sort of well accepted offline category. Like if I were to go to a modern trade store 3 years ago, I wouldn't find shelves dedicated towards your category. So how did one of the challenges, of course, in general trade is discovery, right, for brands, but modern trade can at some level be a great discovery platform. Can
yeah.
you tell us a bit more about with your offline strategy, how have you gone about convincing retailers to stock your products and your brand, and then to create a sort of presence and visibility for your brand?
Sure. So, from a distribution strategy, one large sort of factor we have, which we is a must for us, is that discoverability within the store, right? So that means that
Yeah,
ability for a customer to actually walk around in the store, right? So what we called standalone modern trade or modern trade, right? So there's a
yeah,
lot of standalone stores and that's the universe of 20,000 that I discussed. So these are stores where a customer can get in, walk around, and discover a product. The second cut, which we had to look at very carefully for offline, was is it in a category that people are already buying offline, right? So let's say, our top three categories that we sell today, or our three key categories. First one is juices, right, which is
mm,
wheatgrass, aloe, amla, etc.
yeah,
Second is the powders. So, so we have a herbal meal replacement. We have a vegan Ayurvedic protein, stuff like that. And the third one is the Ayurvedic breakfast, right? Which is basically, amaranth, ragi base with Ayurvedic herbs and vitamins and macro and micronutrients, right? So really healthy Ayurvedic style breakfast with Ayurvedic herbs and good nutrition, right? Those are our three key categories, right? Our
Right.
particular category doesn't exist offline, right? So the second we try to place it offline, it's been a challenge, right? But
Mm.
let's say our breakfast. The beauty is if the category exists, right? We know that there is a healthy breakfast customer going to that store and buying a healthy breakfast, right? We are offering them a better option, right? So we are very high on fiber, very high on protein, very low on calories per serving, completely fresh ingredients, no preservatives. First time bringing stuff like amaranth, ragi, green gram, into your daily kind of breakfast. So customers can look at that and say that, okay, you know what, this is a better option. So
Yeah.
you have to go through that process where does the category exist? Can you place yourself next to somebody who exists today? And is there a clear differentiation by looking at the front of pack that your product brings, right? So I think from a customer journey point of view, that's how we think about it. There are certain categories that fit offline, certain categories just don't, right? You can't,
Yeah.
you can't do anything about it, right? The second thing is more what you asked, which is about how do you convince the retailer, right? And honestly, it's tough. Now, as a brand, in the 5,000 stores, 10,000 stores that we reach, right? 8,000 stores that we reach, the retailer knows us, right? They've seen, some movement. So it's easier to place a new product, right? But the first time a sales guy showed up at a store, it's like, who the hell are you, right? So, just I think there's three things, right? One is consistency. You're not going to be able to convert the store in the first visit, right? You have to go second, third, fourth time. So the retailer feels that okay, this is not a fly-by-night operation. They're going to come. Second is the right distribution network, right? If the retailer knows the distributor, he knows he'll get the restocking in time. He'll know that the long-term sort of scenario is there, right? And the final thing I think is you take responsibility for movement, right? So be it through display, be it through some kind of local activity, be it through showing the distributor that you're spending a lot of money, showing the retailer that you're spending a lot of money online, right?
Yeah.
But you have to give the retailer faith that you're not counting on the retailer to move this product, but you are going to move it for him, right? Which
Yeah.
is something, a lot of offline guys say like, oh, if I give enough margin to a retailer, right, he's going to push my product. That's never going to happen, right? Keep your margins at home. Spend that money on actually getting the customer to buy the product. The retailer is never going to be your salesman, right? So I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I think those are the three key kind of strategic takeaways for us at least, from making.
Interesting. Interesting. I'm going to switch to Mustafa now, and uh, post COVID, there's been a sort of blend of offline and online with the emergence of the hyperlocal challenge, with the emergence of digital technology, which is letting you discover stocking points and have local delivery done from those. Have you guys been looking at adopting some of these technologies to become available digitally while the physical supply chain still exists as it does for you in a very physical way?
Manu, we looked at three aspects of the business. One, of course, all the e-grocery platforms started doing well. In fact, we have actually tripled our revenue in the last 9 months in on the e-com platforms, and it still continue to grow on the e-com platforms. So that those channels are doing well for us. But then 97% of my revenue is still coming from offline, right? And during COVID, the biggest challenge was that many shops were closed, and
Hmm.
even when you walk into the store, right, you would find stock out issues in the store. But then we had one information with us, which was we had store-wise, sales-wise stock data with us on a daily basis. We thought
Right.
of putting up that information for the public, identifying a store, where ID products are available for you in nearby store, right? And also provide them a home delivery option directly from the store if store support it, or you can actually walk in the store and pick up your favorite batter. That was a classical move for us. It did really work for us. In fact, I have a short video. If you can, play that video, how it works. It's a
Sure.
video. Can you ask
Yeah,
play the video?
absolutely.
I think you're muted. No, I think the audio is switched off.
Okay, I'm gonna unmute myself.
Sure, sure. Thank you. By
Awesome.
the way,
I think that's very fascinating, man.
yeah, by the way, we got it done in 2 days. When the COVID hit us, there was no other option for us,
Wow.
right? So we had direct distribution system, so thereby taking the product to retailer was workable for us. But then consumers had no clue on which store these products are available, because many of the stores that they walk
Yeah.
in were closed. For example, modern trade stores were closed. Stores in the shopping mall were closed, right? So during those days, we had to make sure that products are available in their neighborhood stores. So we supplied the products to the neighborhood stores and told them, log into the website, check product availability. It will show them which stores are open in the neighborhood stores during those times, and we'll also tell them, what's the current stock in the store as on that moment, right? Where we had
Wow.
separated stock in the store, right? So that gave a lot of information, and people started using it. We also have given them an alert facility, wherein they could subscribe for the fresh food alert. When the next supply comes in, even if they don't get the stock today, they will get an alert tomorrow, so they can tomorrow walk in or place an order with the store directly. So those kind of you know jugaad approach, I would say, worked for us. And of
No,
course,
it's jugaad, of course. I mean, but you, what goes behind it is a very sound system which is accurately representing inventory live. And that's not something which some of the largest sort of food tech plays in the country are able
they
to do.
cannot do it because they don't have direct distribution system. I have a direct distribution
Yeah,
system.
yeah,
That's my biggest asset
yeah.
today.
Yeah, no, and kudos to your team to, sort of leverage that in a manner which is sort of, gears you up so nicely to take care of, even if it's a short term, but it is an imminent market opportunity which came up post COVID, right?
True,
So
true.
so great job, man. This is really impressive. Thank you so much. And this is for all you guys, who think that consumer brands, especially offline brands, are not tech businesses. If anything, this is pure food tech. I mean, this is the true leverage of technology, to deliver returns.
Let me, if people think that we are not food tech, I think you should listen to this story. Uh, we started in 2005, 2006 time. During those days, we were sending 100 packets to the market. 90 used to come back unsold because people were not
Wow.
willing to accept this product. Over a period of 3 years, we started sending 2,000 kg of batter to the market on a daily basis, and 500 used to come back unsold, which is close to 25%. There was no way for me to make this business profitable and scalable with this kind of wastage.
Yeah.
That's when we started capturing store-wise, item-wise, sales and wasted data. Today we use technology. So I'll probably look at tell you three aspects of the distribution technology that we use today. One, we have 30,000 outlets, and every store is geo-tagged, and thereby ensure that we take the right path to reach the store at the right time every day. Then every store is geo-fenced to ensure that my salesman doesn't cheat, or my salesman actually goes to the store and does the replenishment, right? Third, ID runs on IT, and we use analytics to sell idli. We captured last 10, 11 years of store-wise, item-wise, sales and wastage data. We now use this data to predict the right demand for the right store on the right day. Today, in a mature city, mature product, we do with less than 2% wastage for a 3-day shelf life
Wow.
product. For a 3-day shelf life product.
It's amazing.
Right? That is power of technology. We use technology to sell idli. We use analytics to sell idli. I think we are the food tech.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, this is, I mean, and there was one of, I'm moving on to some of the questions here that I've got, but one of the questions that we got was, when you think of offline distribution, how do you deal with idle inventory and wastage and all of that? And this, Mustafa's business, to my mind, is one of the most complex business in terms of managing idle inventory. His inventory cannot remain idle. It becomes waste within 72 hours. So, there are a lot of other
No, it's
interesting
not 72
solutions.
hours. It's not 72 hours. We actually work on a zero inventory model. Whatever we produce today, if it doesn't reach retailer tomorrow morning, retailer will not accept this product day after tomorrow.
Absolutely. No,
And by the way,
and
we use the same technology and data to predict the right demand for the store, to predict the load out for the route, as well as for our production forecasting.
Yeah.
And raw material planning. The whole thing is tech driven.
Personal care, cosmetics, apparel, all of them, face inventory issues where planning and forecasting has a very big role to play. And dead stock, stock outs, all of those are issues every business faces, and there's no right or one solution for that. It's eventually how much you're able to invest in technology to support your inventory planning and forecasting, which improves the quality of inventory that you stock. I'm going to flip through some of the questions which have come up now before we conclude. This question is for Amev. It goes, how important is it for you, Amev, to own the offline distribution? Because there are many companies which are coming into offline distribution in the Ayurved space, Ayurved nutrition products as well. Is it something that you feel is going to be critical for you to own your own distribution, or are you still going to rely on third parties because that's more scalable and less capital, requirement?
Sure. So, in a product like ours, where we don't have 72-hour shelf life, we don't have those, sort of crazy. So we have 3 months to 9 months to 1 year, right, on average. So when I think of the idea of owning my own distribution, right, what I think about is that the relationship with the retailer who is finally selling the store should be controlled by me, right? The orders from the store should be taken by my sales guy. The activities that are happening at the store should be taken by me. The way we look at a distributor is simply a logistics partner, right? So we look at a distributor as, let's say, an online company would look at a delivery, right? So the way we look at it is that all orders are taken by my salesperson. They are given to the distributor. The distributor's job is to make sure that delivery happens next day, right? End of the day, for me to set up warehouses where next day delivery happens to in the 18 cities that I am is not possible, right? So the distributor model, we still consider it as a model where we own the distribution, right? I know there's some discussion here. Own distribution means own warehouse for in a lot of places, but the way we look at it is that because we have the benefit of slightly higher shelf life, right? We are able to utilize a third party for the logistics part of the distribution, right? But having said that, I think it's very important to own the distribution in the sense owning the relationship. For example, everything that Mustafa said, right? You're tagging every location, measuring the outcome of every campaign and every offline location, geofencing your calls by every single salesman. All of that is something which is integral to the business. Without which, I think a new company, especially a startup, right, cannot grow, right? Because it's like a baby you need to nurture, right? And it needs a lot of attention and time. And outsourcing the whole thing will never be able to get you there, right? So I think owning the distribution in terms of your sales team and your interaction with the retailer is, I think, a no-brainer. I don't think actually it's doable without it. But the distributor side, we look at more the logistic, which you don't know. So that's how we kind of think about the whole process.
Understood. Mustafa, we have a question for you. The question is, with a low shelf life, you have to transport in a cold chain. How do you guys basically ensure that there is your supply chain is temperature controlled and always sacrosanct? How have you built that capability essentially?
So technology plays an extremely important role out there as well. We use mix of both. If you look at our storage, which is after manufacturing, we keep it for overnight fermentation, and that is in a temperature control setup. And then the product reaches the distribution centers by early morning from the factory. That also goes in a temperature control vehicle, large trucks, and then it gets loaded to the smaller trucks. So each city we follow a different model. For example, Dubai, every vehicle is a temperature control vehicle, chill, the refrigerator vehicle, because that's a regulatory requirements out there. Out here, we use mix of some cities we use some vehicles, and some cities we use gel packs
Okay.
to maintain the product freshness.
Is this a fairly intensive business? I mean, in terms of a return on capital employed for building, let's say, opening up a new town or city. When you do the decision making, how do you go about it? Is a lot of this equipment also on your books, or do you have the ability to lease it out, etc.? Could you talk a bit about that?
So we lease the vehicles. So most of the vehicles
Okay.
are now, and it's in OPEX, not a CAPEX mostly. But then this gel packs, execution, all of them, it's in-house.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and in transitioning from just a pure gel packs led sort of play to a fully refrigerated van, is that decision driven by capacity utilization and the
Yeah.
sort of demand?
So both. For example, some of the routes in India, we are now transforming to a fully refrigerated system, because out there gel pack handling, the cost of handling all of them is expensive compared to going for a fully fledged or full fledged refrigerated system. But whereas other routes, especially the new routes, we follow the gel pack system.
Yeah, I have a question here, which I'm going to open up to both of you. I feel it's coming from a founder because it says, how do new age brands go to general trade stores because the margins are really screwed up, right? And it's true. I mean, when you're a young brand, your ability to negotiate a margin with first your distributor and then the retailer is just, the tide is against you, right? So, firstly, to you, Amiv, like as a young brand who went and negotiated with retailers, especially on the margin side, how do you recommend to fellow founders to think about that?
Sure. So, 2 points here. I think initially the way you build your margin structure is very important, right? So, if you're giving a initial discount, let it be a launch discount, not a right. Your retailer margin should be controlled, and then you can have a special launch offer for certain retailers who demand it, as a new brand. I think the second large point here, what I had mentioned earlier, was that you need to give your retailer ownership of sale, right? So I think initially we had to say that, okay, we are going to be in charge of making sure that this sells, right? Let's say our guy is going to come, he's going to make sure that the product is in the right location in the store, it's visible, right? That, when a customer comes and sees it, they're picking it up, right? And honestly, initially you have to have a little bit of flexibility. If your product doesn't move, then you have to give that flexibility to the retailer that on day one, right? It's not like, oh, if it doesn't sell, you're fully responsible. We'll figure out how to do it, right? I know that gets very difficult in short shelf life, 3 days, But for us, it was more about constantly tracking movement in different kind of stores initially, and then understanding in detail that what kind of stores are a good fit for us, right? We very quickly realized that unless a certain type of grocery store, and a certain type of chemist store is where we sell. So we made sure not to open any wrong stores, as you would like to call it, right? And we very quickly understood that where in a store to place the product, next to what other product, and that training and that tracking was given in a lot of detail to the sales guy. So initially, we reached a point where every product, the sales guy would have to take a picture and upload of where he is actually placed it in the store,
Yes.
and if we didn't do that, we're like, you can't open a new store, right? So I think a lot of checks, sort of controls, being a little bit flexible. There is a little bit of that's the whole reason why you do need to invest a bit initially into offline, right? And I think looking at a lot of data and learning, what your strategy is, implementing it very, very, very sort of ruthlessly almost, right? Not deviating at all.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is not just an isolated margin negotiation. It's an overall call on
Absolutely.
what's the category of the store, what you expect its throughput to be, what kind of visibility that store can offer you, and then go ahead and make a composite decision. And it's not cutting off your P&L at the gross margin level. It's all about what flows through the bottom line
Absolutely.
eventually.
So just one small point, idea. What we realized is that if you're giving 10% margin and you're showing velocity to the retailer is much happier than if you're even giving 50% margin with no velocity, right? End
Yeah,
of the day, they don't want to be worried about how do I sell this product. That's the
yeah,
last
yeah.
thing to be worried about. They are more willing to accept smaller margins if you convince them of movement, And I think that's what you need to ensure, right? More than anything.
Yeah.
I think margin is a never-ending cycle. Then you'll give 50% margin, then it won't sell. Then what are you going to do? You give 60% next time. It doesn't work, right? You just need to ensure that the product moves, and that
Yeah,
is the
especially in smaller stores, it's
absolutely,
velocity. That's why it's called fast moving, right? I mean,
absolutely,
it has to generate enough turns in a small store for it to make sense for the guy.
exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mustafa, what about you? What advice would you give, a young founder starting up and wants to enter general trade? How should he think about margins, negotiations?
So 70% of the total business still lies in general trade. So you cannot plan your business without general trade, right? You can talk about all e-com, MT, all of them, but then I mean direct to home as well, right? But then 70-75% of the business is still in general trade. So you need to have a strategy for general trade. Now, when you come to general trade, I completely agree with Ami what you mentioned, right? In terms of margin structure and all of them, keep margin structure which is workable for you in the long term. But you could look at a mix of margin plus a launch scheme plus display, those kind of things. And basically on the sales. Basically, you need to ensure that product moves out of the shelf, right? So whatever you need to plan accordingly. Two advice from my side: stay away from credit. I know it is tough, but if you get into credit, I can tell you, you will become a bill collector rather than a salesman, right? So stay away from credit. I know it's tough, but whatever incentives that you need to provide to retailer, give it and avoid credit. Okay, so that is one thing that we practice, and I can tell you today I have peace of mind. I have positive cash flow from day one because no credit, which
Awesome.
means which means not everyone is your customer. There will be some customers who may not agree
Yeah.
with you. That's fine. Not everyone is a customer, but agree a model that you want to be sustainable in the long term, and then look at or plan things accordingly. Avoid credit, give a margin which is acceptable on the sales, stay with credit as I mentioned, and don't recruit wrong customers. When I say don't recruit wrong customers, he might be able to do good sales for you, but I can tell you he might be a pain in the backside,
Understood.
right?
Yeah.
Especially in the collection. So avoid credit.
Got it.
It is,
Got it.
it
And
is tough.
I thank you guys. I mean,
It is tough, but I can tell you today that's my biggest asset. We are able to collect cash on
yeah.
delivery.
Yeah. No, I think those are great insights. Thank you, both of you. I know I'm just cognizant of time here and we're running out. I'm just going to conclude here. There's a question here which says, can you talk more about brands you've seen with omni-channel distribution? I think both of these guys are perfect examples of great brands which are scaling both offline and online. There are many other brands out there which are doing a brilliant job of building an omni-channel play. And I think it's just been when they've chosen to go online and when they've chosen to go offline. I think 2013 to 15, you had a bunch of brands, great brands which were born, the likes of Viva, ID, Epigami, etc., which went offline first and are now bringing in online into their strategy. And then there are 2016 to 2018, the brilliant brands which have gone online first with a clear view that they will always have an offline play as well. Even within our portfolio, the way we look at brands, and I've invested in 9 companies, all of them are starting with a physical presence alongside going digital first. And I'm a firm believer, and like Mustafa said, that today offline is 95%. Of course, online is going to gain share. But even at the end of 5 or 7 years, if I were to crystal ball gaze, how much is that share going to be? 85% is still going to be offline. It is not something which that we foresee is going to become a majority of retail sales in the next 5 to 7 years. So it's very important to have a clear presence and a strategy to build your offline play alongside organically. And that would be my advice, to young founders who are starting off: go digital first, but always plan for omni-channel if you're thinking of a really large, scalable and sustainable business. So with that, I'd like to conclude this session and hand it over to Nanda. Um,
All right. Thank you so much, Manu, for steering this conversation so well. It was insightful and thought-provoking. I think it's for most of us, and I personally enjoyed this session a lot. I hope you guys had a great fun too. Uh, I've actually attended personally a lot of sessions which was hosted by like Mustafa, and whenever I attend the sessions, I think it's always action packed, and I mean, you actually scale, like, the challenges that's faced in the offline mode with the help of technology. And I still remember, I think in the previous one of the summit where I've attended, you mentioned like how the technology that's been used by ID Foods has been implemented, as it's actually studied in the one of the research papers. So it's amazing like how you've scaled this. And also, I mean, like you highlighted few facts about like how to ensure the discoverability within the store. I think technology is again, the importance of technology and how it can act as a key lever. So it's overall amazing. I hope you had an amazing, uh, you enjoyed the sessions as well.
Thanks, Nanda. I missed one point. I think you brought up a good point. ID's tech-driven direct distribution system for highly perishable fresh foods is a case study at Harvard Business School.
yeah, I know.
Awesome, awesome.
No, awesome. Nanda, thank you so much for having us here. And it was a very insightful session for me personally as well. And I'd like to thank you guys for hosting, Brands Decoded. I hope, our community of investors and young founders who are looking to sort of, looking up to guys like Mustafa and Amif to start up. I hope this was helpful for them as well.
And
Thanks
thanks
a
a lot,
lot.
Manu.
Thank you again.
It was a great session. Yeah.
Thank you.